not the phantom record button. Right. Thank you.
There we go. And over to Melanie to kick us off. 2026, baby.
Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you, Jim, for being our very first speaker this year. We're honoured. And I've known Jim for a fair while, haven't I?
Indeed.
Indeed. He graced us with a talk for the EE Zoom last year, which was excellent. And you would have read his I'll read the official. Jim Doyle is a dowser, an energy and ancestral healer with over 20 years experience restoring balance and health to people, places and business. And with an electronics engineering background, which he'll show you all his little toys at the background there. He's got wonderful, interesting things. And Jim brings a sharp focus to finding the root causes of unhealthy situations before resolving them. Earth healing has always been a core focus for Jim, which I can verify. Working through balance, the energies of rivers and landscapes, and especially the trauma of man-made changes, has always been a fundamental part of his work. Clearing energy blocks from ages ago has resulted in massive fruit growth on trees, which was considered dead, dramatic improvements in mental health and physical health, and also properties suddenly selling after being stuck on the market for months and months. Now, I can also say you are on the committee of the Dowsing Research Group here as well, which is probably how you met Sylvia. And it would be lovely if we could learn some things from Jim today. Sorry, my computer's doing so many things. And we'd like to invite you all to ask questions at the end, if you don't mind. And if you have one at the end, put up a little. Does everyone know how to use the hand on the? Yeah. So you put up your hand kind of electronically at the end, and we'll have questions at the end. Is that okay, Jim?
That's absolutely perfect. And feel free to put the odd comment in the message in the chat if you like, and I'll have a look at that towards the end as well, because I might find difficulty juggling between all of them. So I take it you're familiar with the chat box down below, which comes just after participants, and just click on there and just put a message in for everybody. You can message me directly if you like, but easier if you put it in for everybody. So
I'll watch the chat.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, please, my darling. I love these.
Okay, I'm hitting the share button. Here we go. Is it going to work? Of course it is. Right, screen 2. Okay, are we go?
Can I ask everyone to mute first before we start?
Good plan.
I did go through and mute everyone.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we're okay to go, yes? Can you hear me?
Over to you, Jim.
Better. No, not muting me, please.
No, it was me who was muted, sorry.
I know. Okay, we're ready to go. Okay. Thank you. Now, what I hope to share for you and help give you some insight in this presentation is my experience, some of it quite painful, and lots of learning curves I've had over the last, well, all of this lifetime, really. And I'm really looking forward to it. But as I understand, you're all house healers or house healers in training at some level or other. I will skip over an awful lot of the basics like earth energies and water, underground streams and so on. But I'm more than happy to answer questions on that later on if you feel I've left something important out. Hope that's okay. Earth trauma and house healing is what I feel is that everything that is out of balance is in some way related to trauma. So we'll come into that later on. So what I'm going to cover on here is fairly straightforward introduction, a bit about me, why trauma is the key, about some new energies that I've discovered the hard way, lots of case histories, and possibly where we can go to next. And he says moving his mouse. So, right. So farming background over in Ireland, always curious, and healing and dowsing were sort of natural background for me in rural Ireland, although I didn't know it was unusual at the time. And dowsing for wells and finding water was perfectly normal. Okay, someone's been over dowsing, finding a well. Yeah, just get on with it and dig it. It works. And but then healing was of a different form because For us, on the farm, the vet was like 7 miles away, and we didn't have the pickup truck or whatever because we didn't have a pickup truck to go and get the vet. So what we would do is when some of the cattle got blood murine, which is where they start urinating blood, which would result in their death pretty fast, we'd go and get a particular neighbour down the road. And he would come along and he would dig up the hoof print of the relevant animal in the field. I'm not sure what he did in the shed, if that was the case. And he would turn it upside down, stand on it, and say a silent prayer. And usually they got well in a very short period of time. He was also asked by the hospital sometimes to help with patients where the doctors were having extreme difficulty stopping bleeding. So that's the kind of thing I grew up with in the background. I was a bit sensitive, but left the cows behind. But I did like chasing after rabbits and baby pheasants and corncrakes when they still existed. Um, so a big wake-up call came for me when I was in my early 20s. So, oh yes, I never wanted to do farming. It was evident from a very early age, but electronics, alien concept. And to be fair to everybody concerned and myself and my lucky me, I ended up in Cambridge doing exactly what I wanted to do when it was in my early 20s. And one of my first foreign holidays with a girlfriend, oh my God, yeah, ever so nervous. Anyway, it was in the Channel Islands. And I woke up at night with a strong sense of flames and my dad being very upset. And that was quite unusual. So I tentatively phoned the village store back in Ireland, and my parents' home had been burnt to the ground that night. They were as okay as you can be when your home's burnt down. They weren't injured, but that was a real "what the hell's going on" moment, and sent me on a journey of investigation, really, talking to weird people and reading weird stuff and weird books and going to the spiritualist church, being shown that I was a natural healer, where I could sort of pull a pain out of somebody's shoulder and down out of their fingertips. I remember doing that with somebody, can't remember who it was, and but kept it very quiet, relatively quiet, in parallel with my electronics career, which was fun and games. And I lived in that very haunted house, and goodness knows what else over the years. However, um, it was so my electronics career continued, and it wasn't until around millennium that my inner scream was loud enough. So I had to do something about it. And I went to a mind, body, spirit exhibition not far from here, met a Korean group who, well, they triggered something in me positively, and I worked with them, and it turned into a very deep, profound ancestral healing, amazing ceremonies with them in London, and not cheap, I can assure you. But amazing things happened, astonishing things happened. But I got to the end of it, there was a big empty space in here. Introductory weekend on energy healing. And by the Saturday evening, I knew I had to do a 3-year course. And you might say, oh, great, Jim, look at you. Just one thing. Self-employed, young family, going a bit weird, just spent a load of money going weird, and now I'm planning on doing 3 years more. We're still together, by the way. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And it was based on Barbara Ann Brennan, a book called Hands of Light, you may have come across, who's got healing schools around the world, or had anyway. And this was a UK version of that I worked with. Been dowsing since Billy Gone, some of you will know, way back, and really always been a health intuitive. And so my focus is health issues, and health in the very broadest sense of the word: people, animals, trees, rivers, earth, everything. Get to the root cause, not necessarily what it is, but more to the point, when it is. Energy clearing and harmonizing, again, across the spectrum. Property sales acceleration, I'll show you later. Working with the water and the landscape, and the family and business whisperer is one of the things I call myself, because a person, a tree, a being, a business, they're all the same. their consciousness, their thoughts, their flow, their lack of flow, and it's all the same thing. Quick snapshot of where I've worked with clients around the world. No, I haven't been there. The vast majority of my work, nearly all of it now, is distant. And you'll even see one in central Russia, which was quite interesting, from Alaska to wherever. But what I try and achieve in all situations is exactly that. Make people smile, happy, be chilled out, be relaxed, sense of balance. And that may include nature spirits or trees or whatever it is. So, but a bit more background. 2022, I had severe COVID. Did not have medical treatment, but I was very aware that I spent a lot of out of my body. My toes became extremely sensitive. I was suffering like anything with bandage on one of them for a couple of years, to be quite honest. Cold hands and feet, which is a sure sign of being out of the body. Discovered issues around low blood circulation, random areas of my body dehydrated, and with other people as well. Old trauma reactivated and programs activated that weren't there before. And things to do with subtle issues about capillaries in the lymph system. I now read them like a book, usually, my own and others. But good news, lots of learning, sensitivity increased, awareness increased. Right. So enough about me. What's trauma? Well, it's not necessarily about blood and guts. It's about influence, emotional, spiritual, physical, something that makes us feel bad, unable to express ourselves, unable to feel fully alive, something that's holding us back, perhaps has lasting effects, difficulty coping, and it can affect any or all aspects of our lives. Now, when I work with a person or a property, it's what I do is look for when the origin. So if it's a person comes to me and says, look, my life's a mess, my business is a mess, my family relationships are all over the place, and the house doesn't feel right, where do I start? And the question becomes, okay, what's going on here? And there are two things I check. So just so you know, I have a number of slides. I have no notes. I'm just free-forming. So I may go off tack and come back and catch up on the slides later on if that's okay, because I'm just free flowing now. So a person with a house, everything's not right. And I spoke to somebody like this a bit recently. So the first question is it just them or is it the whole family? If it's just them, then they obviously have a higher sensitivity to whatever is going on. Yeah. And the rest of the family apparently don't. Okay, that's it. So then they have a higher sensitivity. So then look at the house. Where's the energy of it? And I use deviceless dowsing or kinesiology. I just use fingers and thumbs 99% of the time. And so I look at a house and go, okay, what's the energy of it like? And I scale everything between 0 and 10 on the positive, or 0 and -10 on the negative. And what I find is that the energy, as I call it, or not life force, of a house, typical house, is sort of around about 0 to -1-ish, stresses and strains of normal life. In rare cases, it can bring it up to about +10 or so. But one thing that is important is not trying to force it up to a high level, but to make sure that there's nothing dragging it down, so the energy can go up to its natural higher level. So one property, depending on, say, where it is in the world, or the soil or the mountains or whatever around it, might only be capable of going up to a +3. And another one might be capable of going to a +8 when everything is cleared and balanced. And that's something to bear in mind, because as an engineer, I like to find root causes and get everything kind of right and numerically correct. But not all houses are equal, obviously. But there's lots of subtleties involved that is very often a question of stepping back like a 2-year-old and going, oh, something's not right. A 2-year-old will see somebody fall off a bike and go, oh, man fell off bike. Not, oh my God, I wonder if he's hurt. I must phone somebody, must go and grab him. Just being the observer and being fully detached. And that's absolutely crucial, especially potentially dealing with some of the stuff I'm going to talk about later on, because we cannot afford to get stuck in and involved in the energies which may be affecting other clients. And sometimes it's really difficult because we care, they're hurting, that's who we are. And having the fine line between caring and not taking their stuff on board in some form or other is a bit of a challenge sometimes. So what I look for is the house energy. So if the house energy looks low, is the house clear? And I mean, has it got any things that go bump in the night or funny energies that somebody else has put on it? Has it got predecessor energies from previous occupants or even from a property that may have been built on the site before the existing property? And I've had an extraordinary case of that. If you'd like to ask me a question later on, I'm happy to tell you about it, but it's not on my slides. And that was like 95 years earlier and caused all kinds of problems. And that's about the house. So where is it? Is there a problem? Do the owners or all the people in the house actually want it to be a comfortable home? Big question. Lots of possibilities coming out of that. It's something to look at first of all. Then the person themselves. What's their life force like? What's their energy like? Are they fully in their body? And quite honestly, an awful lot of people aren't. In my humble opinion, most people, sort of on average, are probably about 80 or 90% in their body when they're fully grounded. Very few are fully there. And believe me, I know because I spent a lot of time out of my body before I did my training, and then again when I had COVID and sort of gradually fighting my way back in uh, and popping out again, where I had as I said, a remarkable level of sensitivity. So I could go in the kitchen to go and do something and my left leg would go all numb when I stood in the exact spot. And it was actually over the drain, sort of dead end drain that happens to be there. There's nothing wrong with it, but it was like something's not right. And some part of me was reacting to that situation. And so if somebody is unusually sensitive to environments, energies, relationships, the universe, whatever it might be, one of the things to look at is when does that originate from? Or two things. When does it originate from and is it theirs? Is it a conditioning or a program they've taken on from somebody or something else? Or is it something that has resulted from somewhere in this life, possibly in the womb? And when did it originate from? Well, so say somebody is like 50 years old. Okay, so is it theirs? Yeah, seems to be theirs. And then is it from this life? Yeah, okay. Is it before that? 10, 20, 30, 40? Okay, mid-30s, and then fine-tuned down. And I just generally ask, say, look, I get the impression that something happened when you were about 34, say. And it's like, okay, oh yeah, so happened. Presumably not good because I'm picking up this apparent negative energy. So it may have been trauma, divorce, childbirth problems, who knows? Being fired, going bankrupt, doesn't matter what it is. And then work with them around that whole issue, which is a whole bigger picture. So that's where I've just talking about trauma, and that will have covered some of these slides coming up. So invisible energy sources. Now you may be surprised I put hospitals on there for a very good reason. Buildings travel, traveling generally, and specific locations. Hospitals are a place where great things are done, but you think about all the negativity and the fear that goes in there. It gets focused in there, and all kinds of non-positive energies, grief and everything else are sort of floating around. And quite honestly, if you can clear your local hospital down again in some way or other without getting attached or taking it on, you'll be doing a lot of people a big favor. Relationships and family, relationship cords between people can be there from a long time ago. I've seen some extraordinary things when the relationship cords are cleared, like, oh my God, I've been living my big sister's life for the last 50 years. What? Exactly when there was the relationship was healed and cleared. Ancestral. Well, I think I've been trying to clear an awful lot of not just my Irish baggage, but a whole lot of it. Ireland has a lot of its own trauma, and some of it going back way before 1916 and 1798 and way back. And it has shown up time and time again in lots of different ways in terms of physical issues, sort of stresses and strains, can't do a particular task, or what, and find I've got resistance to it. Where does the resistance come from? And I go back to, when does this come from? Is it mine? Is it my father's side? Is it my mother's side? Till you get down to something that's fairly clearly a yes, and then work with clearing it. Old battle sites, very important. Accidents of any kind, again, sort of hospitals, car crashes, strange things, and yes, off planet. No, I have not lost the plot. So why do houses need healing? Energy is out of balance, distance effects, and predecessor energy, like I mentioned, and past illnesses, low vitality affecting somebody in particular, and unknown effects from all kinds of things that somebody will show up. So I'll just run through a series of case histories. Feel free to ask me any questions afterwards you like. That was just a mill I visited. It's not actually somewhere I cleared, but I was like, oh, that photo came up of a place I visited. And if you think about that, it's got Victorian or pre-Victorian building. It's a mill. It was for grinding grit and I think for smashing up sort of sand and flint. That's right, which they ground up really fine to make the glaze on ceramics. But you've got a water wheel, you've got water, you've got buildings, you've got conflicts all over the place on there, potentially. Yeah. And I was looking at some of the old equipment, and they had this big iron bowl and this thing that somebody used to turn the wheel, and there was sort of a hammer used to go smash, smash. But the workers there, and it was for grinding up the flint, which was really hard, and the workers using that used to only be able to work about 2 years, and then basically they died of whatever you call it, silicosis, the dust in the lungs. And so it didn't feel too bad when it was there, but potentially there's a lot of difficult energy there. This is a real one. Somebody was rebuilding their house, long ongoing family project over several years. I'd been helping them for quite a while. And near the end, they were struggling a bit. And I said, okay, so I got my Google map out, had a look-see, and said, right, as you can see on there, I said, I couldn't understand. There's a roadway goes along in front of the front door, and I'm getting 30 meters out in this cornfield or whatever it is. There's a negative energy spot affecting you and some kind of line going through the house. And so I worked on clearing it, and seemed to be okay, seemed to be better, but I couldn't understand it. And he went upstairs, stuck his camera out the window and sent me that photo where this patch had appeared about 2 years earlier. Now, I don't know what it is. Maybe the farmer spilt a load of fertilizer. Maybe there's a weird stream crossing or energy lines crossing underneath. I don't know. But as far as I know, it was then back in balance, and they were feeling a lot more at ease in the house. And so HMO, House of Multiple Occupancy, not selling for 12 months, as you can see on there. It was in Manchester, I think. The owner was in London, and we were talking about it one day, and he said, "Oh, okay, fine." So I had a look. There was a few energy blocks, nothing obvious as I recall. There were one or two things in the house, and possibly the owner's limiting beliefs, or maybe not convinced they wanted to sell with it. And to sell it anyway, they got. I've got a spelling error. Dear. They got two identical good offers within 6 days, including a weekend of when I actually worked on it. French property trauma. This one was, can you see my cursor on there? Okay, you can't, right. Okay, so on there on number 23, I think that's the one in question that they started work on. They used to live over here. And it was an English couple asked us to work because there's a church in the middle there. And they were good friends with people who were right sort of opposite the end of the church there. And as soon as they started working on this second property they bought, the friends went ballistic. They went absolutely crazy, crazy, crazy. And it turned out that there was this sudden conflict. And so we went over there for a few days. It was heavy duty. There was a massacre. I identified a massacre of 22 people round about the time of the Cathars in a village a number of kilometers away. And my wife was with me, and as I drove over there across the energy line every so often, she sort of went, I was focusing on driving, but she wasn't, and literally almost throwing up when we crossed the energy line and healed that. The amazing thing was that I know parler français, and but I'd worked out the date it was from. And they investigated locally in the local history archives and found that a town south of there, some distance south of there, had been sacked the day before the date I mentioned. So that would tie up precisely with them being refugees who were massacred at that point in time. And that was heavy duty because you know what we did for light entertainment? We went to Montsegur, which wasn't too far away. Montsegur is where the Cathar
So
castle was.
southwest
And,
France.
yeah. And
Southwest France. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yes, been there.
right. And I climbed to the top. I climbed to the top, and the energy was really positive and good. And I contacted our Spanish friends and said, "You been here?" And they said, "Oh yes, we were here 3 weeks ago and we cleared it." So it was rather good. Another French one. This was, sorry, that's where it was. Beg your pardon. A different French one. Again, I was over there. Somebody who was over there. Their life was a bit of a mess. English person, and they asked me to come and look. And what I identified was, before I got there, was the in whatever the that one, the ending in HAU, there was a very nasty dark energy very close to there, but I had no idea what it was. But it had to be cleared to clear the information, to clear the situation around the village she was in. Sorry, hang on. I'm sorry, I've given you the wrong map. I beg your pardon. Right. Okay. Not Shelby. Sorry, I put the wrong map on. Apologies. Right. So I went there and confirmed just from her place that the energy was where I'd said, but what we had to do first was clear the countryside. I didn't know what of, and the fascinating thing was that she said, "Where are we going?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll tell you at each junction, and you drive." And there were masses of what I measured as human earthbound spirits, and it was like about a 1 kilometer honeycomb around the countryside. And he went on and on and on. But I didn't have to do any testing because my client was very sensitive to spirits like that. And she'd be driving along, and all of a sudden she'd go bang in the seat. So I went, oh, right, okay, we're here. The next one, do some clearing on those, and then come to a junction and go, right, okay, carry on, bang, and do the next lot. And it was a long exercise. We covered a lot of countryside. Don't ask me what the origins of it were. It was really strange. But we eventually came downhill to a river valley and a town below, and there were some horrible energies in the wood beside us. And so we stopped, nice sunny little back street, having a coffee under the brolly in the heat. And I went, hang on, there's something under the chateau. And thought, oh, okay, so what is it? And I asked for it to be cleared. And at that precise instant that I perceived it to be cleared, there was a bang that shook the town. Now, probably the French Air Force, I don't know, but a few people around went, well, what the heck was that? But I don't know. Anyway, we cleared that, and the following day we went up to the place where the dark energy was, and it was really strange because as we got very close to it, I couldn't detect it anymore. It was like it hid. Eventually, we found this little hill, sort of quarter of a mile from the road, and I thought something not right there. And there was this sense of really weird kind of faces or whatever, pushing against something there. When I got it cleared, the birds started to sing. It was like a great big sigh from the landscape. And what I got was a very strange, oppressive crowd of people from 350 odd years ago, the Skinners or something like that they were called. It was really not nice. However, something lighter. Flat not selling for 2 months. There you go, not a single inquiry. Had a chat with the owner. So cleared the various energies and belief systems and estate agents and relationships and everything. There was still this little something. And it didn't feel negative, something to do with a neighbor. And eventually they said, oh, it's the neighbor who lives downstairs. And he said, I really like having you as a landlord upstairs, and I really like the tenants. I don't want you to sell. Seriously. So it wasn't that I don't want you to sell. It's like, I don't want you to sell because I love you. Yeah. And at the point where I asked for that to be cleared and harmonized, her phone rang with the estate agent to book an appointment. So anything can happen. So that's all different trauma of different kinds. USA, clapboard house, wasn't as pretty as that one. And when I tuned into it, it didn't belong there. It's like, what's going on? And they'd moved it. It's been moved years before, a couple of miles, and was not unusual in the States. Out in the country, they used to put them on telephone poles or whatever and pull them along with a team of horses. These days, they lift them up and put them on a great big low loader and move them to wherever they want to and put them in the new location. But there's just one thing. There's the spirit of place. There's the spirit of the house. Nobody asked it. Nobody told it. Yeah. Nobody talked to it. And the house was very unhappy. So I worked with that and a few other things I mentioned on there. And client was happy as well. This is a UK one where self-explanatory. Their life was a bit chaotic and stuff wasn't going well for them. And they casually said when I got there, oh, did anyone tell you about the crashed bomber just up the bridleway where she didn't want to walk and certainly didn't want her little one to go. And I worked on that, which was pretty heavy. No explosion or anything, just obviously people died. And I cleared that and came back in and had a cup of tea and went back out. And she said, oh, it's just normal. It's all gone. And then I worked on all the rest of the place. And this was one that required a big quartz, rose quartz crystal in a specific place in the house. It's a special house it was, newly designed. And put that in place and went away. I was wiped out after that whole session. But 4 years later, I went to see them. And these, as I say, there were two very old fruit trees. We were going to cut them down, and for the 4 years they had been bending to the point of almost breaking the branches off with the crops of fruit. And I've been back, I think it's 7 years later, and they're still doing the same thing. That was 2 years ago. So I don't know. That's all I say. I did not work on the trees, not specifically. I worked on all the energy around the place, and it's a sort of highish ground. You can see over a lot of the countryside. It's not a million miles from here. I'm in Cambridge, UK, by the way. And there were lots of airfields and goodness knows what else around during the war. And I don't know the origins of the energy, but it was all a bit sticky. This is one. No, I didn't work on healing it, but there was a group of dowsers. We were sitting in this very posh house somewhere down in Essex, and this lady mentioned that she tried so hard to clear this line through a cornfield that simply wouldn't grow year upon year and couldn't get anywhere. The problem was that it was well outside the field. It was simply the line going through the field. So there was a quarry at one end and something like a corn silo or a water tower some distance, I mean, quite some distance away. And the ironic thing was that she actually remembered playing in that quarry as a child some years before. So trauma sources, earth energies, human changes, big fat buildings, rivers, construction and destruction. I don't know about you, but no doubt you've seen some of these videos of these giant mining explosions, like of however many football pitches size they do. And they're picked up on seismic detectors halfway around the world. That cannot be right. Off-planet sources, solar effects, and so on. So in the 3 odd years since when I became more sensitive, I'm hopefully getting back to being more grounded now, and keeping my sensitivity. But there's been lots of sunspots, solar flares, auroras, and things like that. So solar mass ejection, that's a big dollop of charged particles the sun puts out. When that comes in contact through the magnetic fields with the Earth's atmosphere, that's when we get the auroras. And like that, the sun is 90 times the diameter of the Earth, or something of that order, 900, no, 90, I think it is. The Earth will just be a little blob in that lot. And these are in May 2024, I think it was, auroras from Wellington, UK, Arizona, Florida, etc. Now, on there, sorry, it's in blue, you can't see it, it says solitons. That's SOLITONS. Now, there were a number of occasions I took quite a battering post-COVID, especially because I was not properly in my body. I was being a lot of the things, like I said earlier on. My vitality was very low. And out in the garden one day, like, bam! Yeah, what the hell was that? Not physical, just sort of sudden draining of energy. And it happened to me a few times. And it was like, what is this? And I'm trying to identify it back to, you eliminate the improbable, there must be the impossible. And the word soliton came into my mind. I've heard of solitons before, I knew of them, as I'll show you the picture in a moment. But this was 2008, they found one in space. And if you want to know what it is, it's a special kind of waveform. Look at that funny waveform going down the canal there with the people in the boat or whatever. It's a very, very tight, compact wave moving along like that. It's not all scattered like the usual wave on the beach. And this is what I believe was hitting me electromagnetically as an energy. Sorry, that slide should have been about 6 back. So we went out to look at that auroras and so on, saw nothing. Next day I was a woolly mess. and I felt like radiation and so on. And it was definitely, I was being hit by solitons again, was what I sensed. It was over a shortish period of time. But let me just go through quickly. So sources. This is what I dowsed, that man-made satellites hitting a charged gas in the way up near in the magnetosphere, right? And that causes radio waves to be generated, if you like. A mammatus cloud is because they look a bit like mammaries, you'll see in a moment. And as the satellite hits each one, bump, 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 it emits these solitons. That's what it appeared to be. But New Scientist is a UK magazine with let's say, proper authority and provenance. I'll let you read that. 2002, they found a soliton wave 50,000 kilometers from Earth and traveling towards us at about 8 kilometers a second. They think it was generated by that on the edge of the magnetosphere. But that velocity just happens to be the usual satellite orbiting velocity. Yeah, this may sound unnecessarily technical. However, this comes back to Elon Musk and Starlink, right? So they banged 49 satellites up, solar storm, CME came in, heated up the atmosphere, which expanded, and the poor old satellites went and sort of crashed and burned. So that's the kind of thing that has been happening. There's several question marks on there, but that seems to be the case. And there's your mammatus cloud, quite fairly common over the US in various places, not so common here. And then so going back to Arthur Conan Doyle, no relationship as far as I'm aware, is the author of Sherlock Holmes. You eliminate the improbable, it must be the impossible. That's how I get to this stuff. And so when I go through my checklist for the house, the person, the situation, relationships, business, whatever it is, and maybe cleared the various things, there's still something not right. Okay, like that positive influence there was around the person's flat. Excuse me a moment. So I've eliminated or got cleared, and all these things appear to be eliminated, but there's still something affecting the person or the situation. So if there's still something there, what is it? Okay, you go back around the loop again, diddle, 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 diddle. Nope, none of those. Is there something else affecting? Yes. Do I know what it is? No. Okay. And so very often it's too long to type out, just earthbound spirits. Now, they're not necessarily human. In my perception, there are many types of earthbound spirits around, which are certainly not human. I'm not sure what they are, but they come and they go. More often they come and they need clearing. They may not affect you. They may affect you. It depends on how sensitive you are, your particular, I don't know, maybe cultural background. I have no idea. Everybody's unique. There are 8 billion people on the planet, and there's no two the same. So that's why I say of various forms. Okay, so I've gone through the big long list, including earthbound spirits. It's not them, there's something else. So then I came up with stealth energies, and they were like, I can't see them, I can't sense them, but there's something there, sort of something in the corner. Okay, so can I get those cleared? Yes. Okay, they're cleared. Next step. This is over a period of about 2 years. Okay, just so you know, not all on the same day, or I would not be giving this talk. And so I've eliminated all the others. There's none of them. Is there still something there? Yes. Dark energies. All right, they can be cleared. And then we got down to invisible energies. And then unidentified energies. Now you might say, well, hang on a minute, Jim, why the hell don't you just get rid of all of them? Well, I've seen many times, and I've done it myself, where the approach is taken to use a broad broom and clear everything out of the way. but then find where somebody else has done it, and myself in some cases, where, okay, the process is complete, done the clearing, everything's fine. But unless you actually check, is the situation cleared? Is it harmonized? Is everything okay? Are all the negative or non-beneficial influences gone? Are they not there anymore? If you don't check that, the chances are that if there is something new or unknown hanging around, it's not gone, because I think if your consciousness is not aware of it, you just gloss over it. You don't see it. That's my thing. So any of these appear to affect any or all living beings, cats, dogs, probably frogs and everything else, but they basically get you at the weakest point. So if you say have a knee injury, yeah, as an example, then I have had, for myself and quite a number of clients, various things. It's still ongoing. They're still having a problem with it. Everything should be okay. Is it clear? No, there's something in there. So it's usually something of this category of these weird energies. Now, I don't think they have always been around. I think an awful lot of them are here kind of COVID era or thereabouts. I'm not, by the way, I'm not going to talk about vaccines and so on. It's a whole different world. I'm not convinced that the vaccines are as bad as has been suggested in lots of posts, but I do know and see, and that's all I'm going to say about it, that some of them have had very significant effects on some people. But in my experience, it's a very small percentage. I'll leave it at that, but just in case anybody's got half a dozen questions around it. So these energies also affect technology. You ever get your phone going nuts and you can't make a call? It's being blocked. There's something in there. Your laptop, satellites, I know they are sometimes. Cars, I've had that as well. Manufacturing processes, I've seen it. Am I trying to create a whole new league or belief? Or hell no, I'm sharing what I see, and I'd love other people to be able to come back to me and say, well, actually, Jim, maybe you've missed something on there, or maybe there is something else. So I'd like to know. And also it can affect food, water, and premises, and water supplies appear to be a major carrier of these energies. Now, in context, I am working with a group involved, which we hope to be able to bring dowsing into a more credible place to help with restoring rivers and river energy. But that's just getting started at the moment. Now, a specific one was yeast, making your bread. I was doing a whole load of sourdough, quite enjoyed it most of the time. And so my sourdough starter, I think I started with fresh yeast or whatever, but anyway, was been there for 9 months, topped it up, made my sourdough over and over and over again. And one day it was suddenly slimy and dead. And I think, oh, I must have done something wrong with that. Well, it wasn't as simple as that, because I'll let you read that bit. Friend of mine, 30 miles away, I don't think we even shook hands. But it happened at the same time, and he's been doing sourdough for decades. So it's really weird. And not only that, I would suggest that should you be interested, you may in such things, you may find that some kinds of yeast are affected by something weird. Since lockdown, I find that if I check back through time, the when bit, that the Allison's yeast, and no, I'm not knocking Allison's, it just happens to be the case, yeah, that the vitality, the energy, the go, 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 the va, 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 boom of the Allison's yeast back before lockdown was like, yeah, about 10 out of 10. And somewhere in between, it went whoosh, and hasn't come back. That's my perception. But I'd be more than happy to be wrong about that. Relationships and communications, the other energies. So apart from things going wrong and old angst and hate and whatever else affecting them, they can affect them. They don't always. So, other sources, I'm happy to share my thoughts at the end, and random timing, non-beneficial unless we adapt, as it were. And I'll just go to that one. I'll skip over that previous one. That's another role. That was one in Spanish, no, two people in Spanish and myself channeling over about 3 or 4 months or whatever. And we had 6 of us ended up going to do a group healing on Montserrat Monastery. I think it was around 2012. And that was extraordinary. There were no strange energies involved other than really dark stuff underneath it, and vast amounts of angels involved. And as far as we could tell, we all had the same impression. There were at least 4 other sites, possibly 5, around the world going through a similar ceremony at the same time, from China to Russia to Ireland. I don't know where else, at different places. And there was some really ancient dark energies on there, which were cleared. So, in summary, I'm going to say this is a picture off the internet. Perfect feng shui house, isn't it? That mountain at the back, imagine a stream in front, just right. Yeah. So maybe that's what they should all be like. Astonishing changes. Never assume anything. And yeah, we will make mistakes and ask for help and so on. So that is where I am at the moment. And I put, I think, 55 minutes on my timer, and I've got 3 minutes left. Questions? Oh, one thing I didn't say about the water and so on. Source of trauma very often is the interface between roads and rivers. And where you have a nice healthy river going along and a road crossing over, very often the nice healthy river stops being nice and healthy as soon as it goes underneath the road. And that's something I've come across with quite dramatic effects. And I haven't measured it physically, but energetically, the river energy then, once they're harmonized with each other, the river energy then at the lower side, the downside, just goes straight up to what it was coming in. And what I see is that sometimes there are, it's as if very large nature spirits trapped in building works and construction works of that nature, sometimes for, 100 years or more, but sometimes in short term, in ongoing scenarios, because over and over again, we do not relate to nature, we do not relate to the nature spirits or the divas of the place. And in fact, many years ago, we went down to have a wander around London, St. Paul's around there, and went into Paternoster Square, which is just beside where St. Paul's is, and the stock exchange. And I'm wondering out there, going, something's really wrong here. And it's like, what it was, as far as I could tell, was that all these new buildings had been put up compared to pre-Victorian ones, and so all these new shapes and sizes, and the divas of the old buildings are still there in their harmonious relationship with the old building that doesn't exist anymore, but they're not related to the new building. So had a word with them, and a positive word, and it's like, oh, okay. And things seem to be a lot better. But take it or leave it. That's my perception anyway. So would you like to, is there a long list of questions? I think I saw some messages popping up.
Definitely do have a question in there, and just wanted to say about this summary slide. It's almost like it's a kind of a code of ethics for us house healers. I think it's a really good, succinct slide that we should all
Oh,
pay attention to.
thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll stop sharing then, yes?
Yeah, so we did have Deborah's phone said, I have a question for the end. So they were first in and then Heather.
Okay. So am I reading questions or are people going to
I think I think Deborah's going to unmute and
Hi
ask.
there.
Hi, Deborah.
I'm sorry, I can't figure out how to make my video show. I'm on my phone, but that was a wonderful presentation, and I have a quick question for you.
Thank you.
I am a new house healer. I just finished my classwork, and I'm still mucking around with it. And one of my questions is, do you think that, like you had talked about, certain things kind of just pass by us because we're not aware of them in a house? Do you think that only the things that we are up to clearing will show themselves to us? Do you think that there's certain things that maybe isn't our wheelhouse to clear, so that they don't show up, but they'll show up for somebody else? But
you know what I think. You know what I think in answer to that one.
what?
The second last line of that last slide I showed. Be prepared for new discoveries.
Okay. All right.
Because honestly, years ago I was coming back from giving a workshop in Birmingham, and there was a friend with me who lived in North Wales, which is like way over there, and he insisted on coming with me. And I was visiting somebody I hadn't met for 20 years in somebody else's house where I'd never been. Anyway,
Right.
so we went in, and it's like, oh, a bit weird. Okay, fine. Anyway, this person laid on supper for us, and we got chatting, and it was freezing in there. It was really weird. It turned out that this woman and her partner, who died a few years before, had sold both their houses, moved into this house, and it was costing him more to heat this house than it did to heat both of the previous ones. Yeah.
Okay.
And my colleague and I looked at each other and went, what? Geopathic stress, mumble, mumble, mumble. Got the dowsing rods out, went into the garden, and I was kind of buzzed. And, it was a great day earlier on, but I was rather buzzed. And about every, I don't know, 3 meters, the rods had just went, psst, psst.
Mhm.
And there was this hexagon honeycomb, about 3 meters, 10 feet across, something like that. I was like, what the hell's going on? And some of the other people who weren't dowsers said, oh, this is fun. The rods go around. And I started turning blue, which is not good. And it turned out the energy there was incredibly bad. And I found the one place I could sit to try and do some clearing turned out to be the one place where she sat, where it was the only place she felt comfortable in the house to sit and watch TV.
Mhm.
And what I believe was there was something in the ground, this hexagon, honeycomb, if you like, which was about 50 or 70,000 years old. And I just walked into the situation, totally unprepared, just go meet some people, have a chat, catch up, be prepared, be open to the possibilities.
Thank you. That's a perfect answer. Thank you.
Heather.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate hearing your experiences as a newbie and still taking the coursework right now. I have a question. When you were talking about the French countryside and you were driving with your friend, and you said you were clearing the earthbound spirits.
Yeah, keep talking. I just put my light on.
Yeah. Were you stopping and dowsing? Was that your process?
No, I literally asked for the angels to help them move on.
Okay, thank you.
Just while we're in the car, just moving on and go, yeah, they're still here. Yeah, that's clear. And sometimes be aware of the shift. Yeah. And then my client could go, yep, that's okay. They're gone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jim, we had a couple of people talk in the chat about houses being moved in America or Canada. And
It's fascinating. We don't have room to do that here.
Do here.
I
Very
know.
common, says Dawn, especially in this historic homes and cabins. And happens a lot in Canada. Homes being transported to different spots.
Yeah, our homes are generally of wood, so it makes transportation a lot easier. We just live in sheds in Canada, basically. So it's easy just to pop them on a low loader or float them down the river and move them to another spot. So it is common practice here, and you're absolutely right about the impact because nobody's, well, I'm assuming, but the likelihood is they haven't had a conversation with the home or spirit of place or anything.
Actually, in the context of that, there's somebody I've been working with relatively close to me. Oh gosh, over about 3-4 years, I think it's not every day or anything, just now and again. And their old 500-year-old house, whatever, there was a fire in it, so it was uninhabitable. And for various long, complicated reasons, it's now all coming together. They're building a new eco property. They've got about an acre of site available. They're building a new eco property, more or less on the same place. But a number of years ago, they were having horrendous difficulties with architects, with everything. I mean, honestly, it's just, you wouldn't believe it. Litany of disasters. And I said, hang on a second. You haven't got permission to do this. Of course I've got permission to do it. I own it. Oh, yeah? Well, actually, what I looked at was the spirit of place, or the diva of the house, whichever you want, was very unhappy at the concept of the house being knocked down and a whole new one built on top, because where was it going to go? Yeah. So after some considerable conversations with the owners, I negotiated with the Spirit of Place to live in their temporary accommodation they've been in for several years. No problem. It's in the same space, yeah, living with them until the new property. It was quite happy to move into the new property in the similar space, in the similar location when it's ready. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just sort of parked there in limbo with them. And it's getting close to being finished now. So sometime probably in the next 3 to 4 months, it can be relocated. So in my imagination anyway.
We have a couple of questions. We've got Sylvia and then Joe. And then I'm just looking at the time, maybe one or more questions after that, and then we'll call it to a close. Sylvia, your question.
Sylvia, you need to unmute.
Yep. Endorsing what Jim has to say about the land, I have been working with a hospital in the vicinity of Fulham Road in London, and I've worked there a couple of times, and I decided I would look into there were reasons why I wanted to investigate the history of Fulham Road, because my dowsing and intuitively sort of identified that the area was very different historically to what it is now. And it was fascinating, and I'd really encourage everybody to actually do this when it's relevant, because what I found was, first of all, going back, I could go right back like nearly 2,000 years. And so I discovered how the river, of sort of the proximity of the bishop's palace there, Fulham Palace,
Oh,
being
yes.
the bishop's palace. What was so fascinating was, as I got back to, I then discovered that it really was a market garden for the whole of London, which was basically what is now the City of London. It was in the middle of the country until the mid 1800s, when it started to change, and it became, if you like Hampstead, a healing place where people with TB would be sent, because it was in the country and they had the market gardens and they had the animals. And had found a sort of a ley line that I figured animals had gone along, which was exactly what was shown up on the research. But then I also discovered it was a place that was full of workhouses. So if anybody knows about workhouses, they're really sad places. So the whole of Fulham Road changed to be a conflict between healing and illness and a lot of sadness and destitution. And so that changed the accent of my healing, or part of my healing for that building, was to also link with these other energetic residual traces in the whole area, and purposefully and positively. Funnily enough, after I left, a few days later, people came into the building and remarked how beautiful the energy felt, and they never usually notice that. In a hospital, it's usually the other way around. And without having done that research, I would have omitted or maybe intuitively guessed that the if you like, the energetics of the place, but I found I could verify it by research, and that actually opened out possibilities for the, if you like, the breadth of my healing and where I could go, questions I could ask, and so on. And so it became a much more purposeful and probably more effective and more definitely satisfying. I was there for several hours, and when I came out, I felt really good. It was almost like it was such a good relationship with the place, and contributed to everything I found out about it. So I just thought it would be nice to share that with you, Jim, because you put some amazing, brilliant what you've been doing, and so helpful as well to be able to hear it from you.
Thank you. Thank you. Two things. Just to say that I'm working with some other. I've done quite a bit of work with rivers and water in the past. And 2021, I heard about the Wye Valley which is on the Welsh UK border, which is horrifically polluted. It's a major media circus almost, and everything is blamed on the chicken shit and basically farming, polluting it. And I just went, that's not true. That's not right. So going through Google Maps and chasing up tributaries and so on, I went and spent a couple of days down there. What I found was that is what I have found with that, and globally, and also with my Spanish colleague as well, is that there's a lot of things going on with water which are way bigger and underneath the obvious stuff. The chicken farms, the pollution. Yes, of course, we're putting far too much crap into the rivers and the water, and we treat it with total disrespect. But there are major issues. There are major big issues on there, which is outside this meeting. But it sort of brings me to the question of Anne Milligan asked me. I don't engage with public policy. I'm not involved in that area at the moment. I may well be at some point in the future, but certainly not at the moment. But the first thing to check, always check everything like this. I'm not saying you're right or wrong, I've no idea, but does flea spray all kill the aquatic invertebrates, or is it just a contributory thing and there's lots of other things as well? That's a question. Sorry, Anne, you're muted. Yeah.
I don't think she can talk, Jim, because she's at work.
I actually can. I've got a
Oh,
quiet
you can.
corner.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay.
And,
Sorry, Anne.
and everybody else seems to have gone home in this building. So
Right. Okay. We'll be
yeah,
quiet.
it's something that really does interest me, because you can heal, you can heal, you can heal. But if a roof falls in, it would kill somebody full stop. Do you know what I mean? That we've got
Yeah.
biology. I've got natural historians in my family, so that's what I spend my time looking at. And when there's such damage being done that affects biology, because we are all biology, it's kind of interesting how much the healing or the esoteric levels can actually engage with public
Oh,
policy.
absolutely. Yeah,
Because it's
absolutely.
if you put a housing estate of 20,000 houses down, you've simply killed the earth because you've killed all the living creatures there.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It depends on the scale of what we're doing. If you impact something too much under the natural law of things, then that is gone and no amount of healing will bring it back. And there is this thing that people are putting a flea spray on their dog's neck because everybody has a dog in the UK. Why, I don't know.
That's
Everybody has
the
a
issue.
dog.
What we need to
I would
do.
say get dog licenses.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's true.
that's a separate issue. I do
But
engage
what
in
we have to
policy,
do.
but they put this flea thing on their neck, which is deadly
I know
to
it's
all
horrible.
marine or water. The dog jumps in the water,
Oh, see what
and
you mean.
everything dies. But that should be a public policy thing that we could almost link. Do you know what I mean? There's a kind of
I
gap
do.
between
I
public
am
policy.
very sorry. I'm
which is
very
useless in this
aware.
country, and then the healers. There's a big gap, isn't there?
I know, and this is the problem with the Wye Valley. We've talked about going there and trying to bring dowsing up to a good level, but my point I have made, and others may be beginning to agree with me, is that because there's such a big media thing and there are so many people owning their issues about what is wrong there, trying to bring some common sense into that, it's like being at the bottom of the hill and they're all up there. So actually look at some more appropriate challenges where there's a known problem and we have a better chance of getting up to the right level and working into it. But thank you, Anne.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting
Thank
talk.
you. Yeah, I've put my email and and if you want a 15, I'll put it. Okay, you got a 30-minute discovery call on there, right? There's a link on there, and I'm just aware of the time before Melanie and Dawn telling me to get off.
Well, we've got a couple of questions, Jim. We've got Joe and then Cecily.
All right, fire away.
And Melanie will have the last question.
Right.
Okay. Hi, Jim, and thank you. That was really interesting. What I'm interested in getting from you now is you seem to be experiencing a lot of the different energies through your body and that's really impacting in you. And as energies shift and evolve and we experience new situations, how have you adjusted your methods of protecting yourself other than don't engage with anything too detrimental? Or do you?
That's a very, very, very interesting question. Right. Okay. I think the simple answer is where am I now, as opposed to how have I adapted. I suppose the reality is I'm constantly checking where I am. Am I okay? I get up in the morning, am I here? Or if I'm not performing, thinking I'm struggling with this problem. Why am I struggling? Am I clear? Am I in my body? Is my blood flowing okay? Is my lymph flowing okay? So a quick scan and I can just go. And some days are just rubbish days. Yeah, just like everybody else. Yeah. If that answers your question, I haven't got.
That makes sense. So sort of an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, it's an ongoing, evolving situation. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Cecily.
Hello, Cecily.
Thank
Hello.
you. Going back to the conversation during the questions about spirit of place, and it also kind of relates to moving homes or moving buildings. Have you ever experienced like a spirit of place changing when it changes ownership? I had just been working with a client recently where it was like as soon as the owners who have owned the home, I think for a majority of the time, had finally moved out, everything in the home was falling apart. And there was a conversation about, whether or not the spirit of place was happy? And also, is it the same spirit of place as it was with the owners? Or does that at times change, if that's making sense?
Ned, I haven't met that particular situation, but going back to Paternoster Square in London, we there was a little kind of diva, like a little bouncy child, came along holding our hands when we did the initial work, and within a year or so, with that really energetically off the scale tough environment, like a war zone, yeah. The imageries I had then and even now is like I've become a big sort of bruiser with calluses and whatever. Totally changed. That's what comes to mind. I haven't got a particular house one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right.
And then Melanie, last question from you before we close out and thank Jim and send him on his way.
I was just going to thank Jim. Chris told us last time about a house that was physically moved somewhere and in terrible troubles. You'd definitely be interested to hear what Chris has to say about that. That was fascinating, just to remind him. But obviously in Ireland, you know what it's like in Ireland. I'm on the west coast, I'm middle of nowhere. There's the nearest house is kind of over there somewhere on another mountain.
Yeah.
The amount of people here who bought, like us, an old ruin. I mean, we had no electricity, no windows, no doors, no plumbing, nothing. And the first thing they do, because they're tiny, my house, you can swing a gerbil and it's tiny. So a lot of people build extensions. And I've done an awful lot of work with people.
And they're not harmonized either intentionally or physically or goodness knows what else on there. And just for good measure,
really, really common.
Something just came to mind I feel I need to mention is that I've worked with a couple of people in London. I've worked with lots in London, but two in particular. And they had sometimes the energy in the house is like off the scale in the pits, right? And other times it's perfectly okay. It's like, what is going on? My sense is that remember Lord of the Rings, those battles where they got the big things that go along, the huge big, was it golem or something? No, not a golem, the huge big ones, yeah, really powerful ones. There is something like that. I think there are, oh, one's gone. I reckon there are three in London still, but there were two of them in different places, and they move around in different areas. And when they're around, the energy is really, down, and then the energy is kind of normal when they're not there. And they're not. I haven't asked for them to go away because of a feeling there's something fundamental in their existence that's actually important there. I just mentioned that as like, don't know. I feel somebody needs to know it. Maybe somebody who's going to watch the recording.
There's also spirit of place as well, because I mean, nobody lived in our house for like 100 years before we bought it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The house wouldn't, the first thing we did was get to know the house and leave it offerings, and I mean, we have the fairy path going past the house as well, so it's even worse.
I'll tell you what, you do not want to be flippant or mess with.
I do not. But
no, I know you. I know you don't.
Yeah.
When I was doing my healing training down in Wales, I had a reputation. It was 3 years. I had a reputation of the guy who took the ladies down the lane to meet the fairies, but it was true because I was. But these, I don't know what beings they were, but they were about this size. They were big, and I'll tell you what, you wouldn't mess with them.
Mine's 7 foot at the top of the drive, and everybody's seen him. He looks like the
right. Yeah, exactly.
Standing man's hand on a cloak, and loads of people say, "Who's standing at the top of your drive?" I think, no, that's not human.
Yep. Oh yeah, and we've had a sentinel in the house for I don't know how long. Looked like what do you call it? The Russian babushka, little dolls within dolls.
Yeah,
but it was about this high. It was standing. So you walk across the end of the dining room, and we'd both walk around it. It was there for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. Don't know why, but it was just there.
Now, and going very quickly to Sheila's point, researching. I mean, Cecily and I were discussing your place, weren't you? Looking at the moment, Cecily, in Scotland. The one we were discussing. Basically, there's an awful lot of history. This place has got all sorts of stone circles and Roman forts and all sorts of stuff. I mean, there was so much to research in that place alone before you even start in the house, because it's right in the middle of all this incredible stuff. and a cemetery, wasn't there, and everything. So, you know, you having a look at the map and doing a bit of research about especially, you've never been to Scotland, have you, Cecily? No?
No,
So, yeah,
I haven't.
yeah. And you've got the Roman fort, which is near Hadrian's Wall. It's all very complicated. So knowing the history of the land,
there's that Roman town at the west end of Hadrian's Wall is horrendous. It's horrendous. It's awful, and it feels like, I don't know, hundreds of years of sort of negativity sort of flowed in there and just settled in the place. And the archaeologists want to dig it down to 10 feet over the whole area over the next 100 years or something. It's like, give me a break.
Not with that. Anyway,
awful stuff.
I know we're very short for time, so
we are definitely coming to the end. I want to honour everybody's time, and you know, just one thing to add to that. Certainly here in Canada, it's the impact of colonisation. We may not have an awful lot of kind of written history about what happened on the land, but certainly the impact of colonisation can be felt in our house healing endeavours. So and all countries have that, some more recent than others. So that's another aspect to look at too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim, thank you so much. You've sparked so much conversation, some great questions. I think, what springs to mind for me is that we are all engaged in this exciting, sometimes mind-blowing work, and we're kind of bringing the healing to the planet at all levels. And I'm really grateful for the likes of you, Jim, who have been doing this for a long, long time and kind of, set the framework in lots of ways for our work. So thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom and your experiences so beautifully.
Thank you. My pleasure. And my contact details are in the text if you want to grab it, or if you're sending it out with the email.
I will definitely send it out with the email of the recording. Jim's now a part of the network as a thank you for 12 months, so you might see him again. Thank you all for being here. It's been wonderful, hasn't it, Melanie? Lovely to see so many of you at our first network meeting of 2026. Next month, we've got our open Q&A. So if any of Jim's presentations sparked a question or two that hasn't been answered, we can dive deeply into that when we come together in our Q&A in February. And then in March, we've got the wonderful Adrian. Ask Adrian Anything, AAA. Is
okay.
The title.
Looking forward to it.
Ready. Lots of questions.
What date in February?
The date in February is the 11th. Jim, what I'll do is I'll send you all the dates.
Fine, thank you. Okay.
Make a note of that.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. So lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
And Jim.
Much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.